wanted to come on and just kind of post my final thoughts on running for Congress, my campaign, my opponents, just a little bit of everything, just kind of a wrap up of for me, the last 6+ months. So I'll try to wrap it up somewhat quickly, but also kind of a little bit longer video, if that makes sense. So, yeah, campaigning for Congress is definitely hard work. There's a lot I didn't know. Um, but a lot I learned along the way, and I'm glad I ran. I don't have a campaign manager, never had a campaign manager like my opponents. So I got to do a lot myself, and I'm proud of what I did and what I was able to accomplish, which includes building my website all by myself. No professionals helped me, which some of you may or may not have noticed, but I'm not a professional website builder. That was the first time I've ever built a website, and it was a challenge and took a couple weeks to get it looking as good as I could by myself. But I definitely enjoyed it and was glad that I was able to do that. And that was kind of my first start of my campaign, was having a website where people could learn who I am and why I'm running and everything about me, so to speak. So. And then from there, just snowballing into doing social media, which, I'm sure we all wish we could have a time machine and do things better. So for me, for sure. But, making an Instagram for Congress and my first time making Twitter, or now X, had never had an account on that before. Honestly, I failed miserably. I didn't really get into Facebook. I thought I was going to, but I made a Facebook account, but really didn't post anything on it. It was just so much to do and so much little time, even from designing business cards and door hangers, and then lawn signs, and just doing everything myself. Again, a lot of work, and not complaining at all. I definitely enjoyed it, and I enjoy hard work and pushing myself and seeing what I'm capable of. So, I loved it. I'm so glad I decided to run for Congress and do something kind of crazy that I didn't see myself doing, and none of my friends or family saw myself doing. I just felt like the Lord wanted me to do it, to run, and so I did. And so I don't know what the future holds. Obviously, tomorrow is the election. Obviously we'll see what the voters decide, but I'm excited with whatever happens. And I don't know the future, even, a year from now, if some people say, hey, will you run again? Obviously depending if I lose, then I don't know if I'll run again. If I win, then obviously I'll be in DC. But yeah, whatever happens, I just trust in the Lord, and he's good no matter what happens. And I think there's a lot of times there's scary things in front of us, and we just have to go and do it, and trust what God's telling us to do. And so for me, it's been an amazing experience, honestly, just everything I've done. So I'm kind of running on and blabbing about that, but let me kind of get some of my predictions and thoughts. Obviously, Mike Simpson is the incumbent. He's been in office 25 years. That's not a secret to anyone. For me, the question, and maybe other voters, is just, why has he been in office so long? Why do we Idahoans keep electing Mike Simpson? And the best guess, my best thing I can say to that is, I think, unfortunately, and I'm going to include myself, is just Idaho voters are uninformed. We don't have anyone. We don't really have an organization or anything really that's telling us how he's voting, what's actually happening in DC, what he's exactly voting on, what he's accomplished, what he hasn't accomplished. And so it's just very easy, to go show up to vote, and you just click for Mike Simpson because that's the name, and there's an R next to his name, and we assume he's voting like a Republican and doing a good job. That's what I thought growing up here in Idaho. I was just like, oh yeah, just, vote for Mike Simpson. I know the name. I didn't ask questions. I didn't dive in. And so I think that's just something we have to change moving forward, really, not just this election, not just the presidential election or any elections, really. We need to start asking more questions. And I think, too many of us have just got lazy and complacent and assume, the people representing us in here in Idaho or in DC are doing their job. And I think finally it's caught up a little bit now where, many voters are realizing Mike Simpson isn't doing his job. There's some stuff that's not going well. And so, it's unfortunate that it took this long and things to go that bad for voters to wake up a little bit. But I think we definitely need more voters to wake up and know what's going on. And so I definitely encourage everyone out there, it's time to talk to friends and family about politics, and do it the best you can. But it's time to be objective and informed and know what's going on, because again, our leaders are not representing us well. And so a couple of things on Mike Simpson that I think, again, for me, that are pivotal, that have made me decide to run for Congress, to say, hey, we need change. And one of the big ones is, since he's been in office since 1999, we're $30 trillion more in debt. So in 1999, we were only $5 trillion in debt. 25 years later, we're almost now $35 trillion in debt. So again, that's a $30 trillion increase, which is just insane. How do we keep electing officials that can't do math, that are ruining the country, honestly, just even economically? It's just mind-blowing. A lot of voters don't know about Mike Simpson, that back in 2016, when Trump first announced he was running for president, Mike Simpson didn't endorse him. He didn't have good things to say about Trump. And then, as all good politicians do, all of a sudden, he supports Trump and wants Trump to be president again. And it's just funny where, if again we go back to the beginning, to the truth, he wasn't a Trump fan. So it's just funny, to be reelected and convince Idahoans that he's a good Republican. It's a joke. He's not. Voters need to know the truth of how he really feels, how he felt originally. And some people might say, oh yeah, he's changed, or this or that. Okay, well then let's look at January 6th. What did Mike Simpson say about January 6th? He said it was a dark day. It was a bad day for Americans. And you have to stop and say, are you sure, Mike Simpson? What exactly happened on January 6th? Have the government released all the videotapes and footage? And they slowly have. And you'll notice the media is pretty quiet about January 6th now, because we've learned a lot more about the truth and what happened and what didn't happen based on literally just video evidence. So I think that's a good thing for voters to know, is, go read, go Google what Mike Simpson said about January 6th. I think that's important. Mike Simpson hasn't debated at all here in Idaho. He hasn't campaigned at all. Just recently, last week, he's just spammed everyone with mailers and saying he's a good conservative Republican, but he didn't go to any debates. He didn't show up to anything. He hasn't been in Idaho. He's been in DC the whole time. That's just disappointing as a guy that says he represents Idaho, that he's an Idahoan. He's not here. He's physically not here. He's not trying. He's just going to assume he's going to get your vote based on his name. So that's just unfortunate. But another thing Idahoans need to know is, Mike Simpson, and he said it in a couple of articles, it's public information, he's voted every single time to give Ukraine and foreign aid money, hundreds of billions of dollars. So it's just funny, because if you look at his social media and stuff that he's saying, oh, hey, I got Idaho $1 million for this, or $2 million for this. Okay, so you got us $1 million or $2 million for a couple projects for Idaho, but you've given literally hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine, Israel. It just doesn't make sense. And all while he's giving the billions of dollars to Ukraine, he hasn't secured the border. We have a Republican majority Congress, and we have no border security. Very simply, we could have said, hey, no more money to Ukraine until we secure our southern border. The Republicans could have done that. Instead, we've just given more money overseas, and our border is still not secure. And truth be told, really, the border has never been secure in 30, 40 more years. We have drugs coming across our border, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans, the fentanyl overdoses, and no one's doing anything. The border's not secure, but Mike Simpson is working hard for Idahoans. it doesn't make sense. And I think, again, we just need to be informed. We need to ask questions. Here in Idaho, most of you have probably talked to friends and family, know what's going on in the school system. Well, Mike Simpson voted to give the FBI our larger headquarters so they can get more people in the FBI, even though the FBI is harassing parents that ask questions about what's going on in school and doing more. It's just insane of the things that he's voting on, and yet he then portrays himself to be a strong conservative for Idahoans, and that's just simply not the truth if you literally look at what he's voted on. And again, it's not a bad, I don't mean it to be meanly, but just Idahoans are uninformed of who Mike Simpson is and what he's really doing. And my true belief is if we had informed voters, Mike Simpson would have very little chance to win. He wouldn't get enough votes, not even close, if voters really knew what he was doing and understood, what he's done. And so I think in the future, that's something, I don't know, I'm going to kind of look into that, if I can build another website or run a social media account and just try to inform Idaho of, what's really going on in DC, what politicians that say they're representing us, what they're voting on, how they're actually voting, so we know what they're doing, and honestly that we can hold them accountable. I think that's something that's hugely been missing in politics. We don't hold our politicians accountable. I mean, Congress doesn't hold the president accountable with all the executive actions that the president's able to do. So it's just, there's hugely a lack of accountability in politics, and ultimately that hurts us regular Americans, and it's disappointing. The other guy I'm running against, Cleveland, I've had a lot of questions, why are you both running and this and that, and not to be meanly, but I'm glad that I am running, because honestly I wouldn't want to vote for either candidate, Cleveland or Simpson. And for me, the reason I wouldn't vote for Cleveland is he's just another wealthy retirement age politician. We have plenty of those. We got 5 of those here in Idaho. Our governor, our 2 senators, our 2 congressmen. Average age is 71. They're career politicians. We don't need another one of those guys. And I know comments, people have said, oh, well, he's better than Simpson. I'm sorry, I don't think he is. Time will tell. We'll see what happens tomorrow and down the road, but he's not the guy Idaho needs, and that's just my own personal opinion. Like I said, I'm glad I don't have to choose between voting for him or Simpson, because that would be a tough choice for myself. Again, I think voters need to be informed, and I've done my best to answer questions when people ask them about, why I'm running and why should people vote for me versus vote for Cleveland. And again, I just want people to be informed in that Cleveland ran for Senate 2 years ago. There was 5 Republicans that ran. Cleveland was not one of the 5 Republicans that ran because it was a crowded field with 5. 5's a crowded field. He ran as an independent. So he's a guy that's willing to change parties, willing to do whatever it takes for his advantage. So he ran as an independent. So you had 5 Republicans, the independent, which was Cleveland. Then you had libertarian, Democrat. So you had in the constitutionalists. So you had, 8, 9 people running for the Senate back in 2022. That's a crowded field. And again, I switching parties for strategy, as he likes to call it, or whatever. I mean, to me, it's playing games, but that's not someone I'm going to vote for personally. That's not who I am. That's not the people I hang out with. And so 3 of us running compared to 5 in the Senate 2 years ago, it's not a crowded field. I'm not a politician. I'm just a regular guy, and I grew up playing sports. I'm competitive. I've never dropped out or not competed. That's just I'm an athlete. I'm a competitor. I will always compete, and the best person wins, so to speak. Who campaigned the best, who Or in my case with my two opponents, who spent the most money, who's trying to buy an election. Are they the best candidates, or do they just have the most money? And that's, I think that's something Idahoans have to consider to a certain degree. I mean, again, if you want change, are you changing? Are we changing who we vote for? Or are they actually somebody different, or just retirement aged wealthy individuals that can go out and spend $50,000 on signs? Just because you have that doesn't mean you're the better candidate. And kind of my prediction, and he stated this publicly too, but in 2 years, 2026, he's already stated publicly that he's going to run for the Senate. I mean, that's his desire, is to be a senator, because senators only have to campaign every 6 years. If he runs here for Congress again, he's going to have to campaign again in every 2 years, which he stated he has no desire to do. But, a guy that is desperate to be in the Senate and then Congress and then back to the Senate, again, that's just another career politician that I'm not going to vote for. Doesn't have my vote of confidence. And so that's just my opinions. Those are my thoughts. Some of that information is factual, obviously, about him running 2 years ago and the circumstances there. But for me, it's very hypocritical to ask or tell me to drop out when he didn't drop out, when he dropped out of being the Republican and ran as an independent. So, I think those are just silly games that really the liberals play of, do as I say, don't do as I do. And I'm not a politician. I don't play those games. I am who I am. I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican that's been a Republican my whole life. I haven't changed parties for strategy reasons or for my benefit. Again, that's just me. I am who I am. And then I guess this video, as I'm looking at the time, it's going long. I'm sorry, I'm ranting, but being my first time running for office and just experiencing what I did, I got to be honest and just say the Republican organizations here in Idaho were very disappointing. I had my predictions when I decided to run, and I knew pretty good idea what I was getting myself into, and a lot of that turned out to be true. I had hoped that Idaho would be a little more fair, that we weren't DC, but politics is politics. Everyone has their friends and their buddies, and Idaho is no different. And so me being a regular guy, a nobody, no one knew my name, and I went to meetings. I passed out business cards letting people know I was running for Congress, and specifically the Ada County Republicans, and nobody reached out, nobody asked questions, because as Scott Cleveland likes to tell you, he's third vice chair, and so he got the unanimous support from the Ada County Republicans. Not shocking, but it was just more shocking that those people didn't really ask any questions, didn't try to get to know me. But again, not surprised, just more disappointed. And why I say that is I have to give props and appreciate all the news organizations here in Idaho. They were more fair and objective than anybody, any other organizations, honestly. They emailed me, they contacted me, they asked me questions, they wanted to do interviews. And so I definitely appreciate all the news organizations that did reach out and gave me an opportunity and a platform to tell people who I am and why I'm running and the issues and where I stand on things. So I definitely appreciate that. It's just, I can't say the same for a lot of Republican organizations where it's a good old boys club where, they have their friends, everybody scratches each other's backs and, benefits from, the people. And so that is what it is. Again, I'm not surprised. Politics is politics, but, it's good learning that. Kind of to sum this up and maybe why I'm running again a little bit is, for me, I think Idaho and America, we need just regular people to represent us locally here in Idaho and in DC. You can simply look at history, the past 30 years, 40 years, where we've been, where we, what's been accomplished by our politicians in DC. Is life better? And the answer is no. I mean, we're $35 trillion in debt. And that's because of career politicians that are retirement age people. They don't care. They're not going to be on this earth that much longer. So they obviously don't care. I mean, that's obviously by the amount that we're in debt and what's going on at our southern border. Like, none of this is by accident. These politicians, whether it's the president or Congress or Senate, they all gain, they all become much wealthier once they're out of office, or, if you're in the Senate or Congress, you gain all this wealth while you're in there. You have insider trading because you know what's going to be passed. To me, it's just very simple. They don't care about us. They're all about, power and influence and wealth. And the average American is struggling, and we keep electing politicians are representing us thinking it's going to be different somehow. And it's not. We just keep going in circles with these same politicians that aren't doing anything. They really don't care. I mean, if 87% of Americans want term limits, then we should have term limits. Congress should pass term limits. But Congress has not passed term limits. So again, if 87% of Americans want term limits and we don't have that, is Congress representing us? No. Even more recently, again, 70% of Americans don't want to send more money to foreign aid. And whether it's Ukraine or Israel, we're tired of that. We keep sending money over there. So 70% of voters said, no more, we don't want to do that. What did Congress do? They keep sending money overseas. So again, does Congress listen to the majority of Americans? 70% of Americans don't want that. They're simply not listening. That Congress just does, in the Senate, they just do whatever they want to do. They don't listen to us because they're not accountable to us, because we keep electing them. It's just this crazy cycle that we're in, and that we have to stop. And so that's ultimately why I'm running. I think we need regular people to represent us in Congress. I'm a native Idahoan. If I were to win, I'd be excited in that I'd be able to represent in Idaho, and I would definitely try for change. But having to be in DC is not exciting to me. Not being able to be here in Idaho and doing the things I love, camping and driving around and being on the Greenbelt and being in the mountains, and I wouldn't be able to do that if I'm in DC. And so, it just, it blows my mind that Mike Simpson's been in DC at least 13 years, literally, or more. I don't know how much time he actually spends here in Idaho, but you can't say the guy's an Idahoan at this point. He spent way more time in DC than he spent in Idaho. I don't know what real Idahoan wants to spend all their time in DC. Like, that's, yeah, it just boggles my mind. And that shows you, the career politicians, the power, the wealth, the influence. They don't want to be in Idaho. They want to be in DC with all their friends and buddies that are corrupt as well. And so again, I think we need change. That's why I'm running. Because I think if I can win, that can inspire anybody else in any other state, or even here in Idaho, to say, hey, I can run, I can make a change. A regular guy, a regular woman can go out and run for office and do something. Electing wealthy retirement age people gives no hope to Idahoans, doesn't give any hope to Americans. That just again shows if you're just a regular person, you have no chance. That's just severely disappointing. That's almost un-American in that thought, where we keep electing wealthy people. Why do we keep electing wealthy people? Why do wealthy people have to be the ones that represent us in Congress and the Senate? It's just silly. And so that was one of my motivations too, to run for Congress. I'm like, what can just a regular guy do? And so that's, again, part of the reason I'm running is what can I do? And that's not only just what can I do, but I think that's what we need here in Idaho. That's what we need in America. We need change. We need some youth. And we can have a balance. It doesn't have to be all young people, but it can't be all old people like it basically is. I mean, how many of you could, without Googling it, how many of you can name a senator or a congressman or a congressperson that's under the age of 50 right now in DC, whether it's in Idaho or any other state? Good luck off the top of your head, because I doubt many people could. I mean, just because most people in DC are retirement age, and that's who's got us in the trouble that we're in. So that's why I'm running. So a long rant, but those are kind of my final thoughts of my campaign experience and running. And so I'm appreciative to everyone that supported me and asked questions. And so, I'm excited for tomorrow to see the results. And again, thank you all.